Imagine holding a simple brown penny in your hand and not realizing it could be tied to one of the most dramatic moments in American history, or even be worth thousands of dollars. The 1944 Lincoln penny without a mint mark looks ordinary at first glance. But behind that small coin is a story shaped by war, scarcity, and one of the most fascinating minting transitions ever recorded. The 1944 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln. By 1944, the United States was deep in World War II, and even everyday objects like coins were affected by the global conflict. This penny was produced by the United States Mint in Philadelphia, which is why it carries no mint mark. To understand why this coin matters, you have to go back just 1 year earlier. In 1943, the U.S. government needed copper for wartime equipment like ammunition and wiring. So the mint made a bold decision. Instead of copper, pennies were struck using zinc-coated steel. These 1943 steel cents looked silver, almost like dimes, and they confused people across the country. But by 1944, the mint reversed course. They needed to return to a more familiar look and feel. However, copper was still limited. So instead of using fresh copper, they recycled metal from spent shell casings collected from military training grounds. That means the 1944 Lincoln penny was literally made from materials once used in war. Every coin carries that hidden connection to history. Most 1944 pennies, including the ones with no mint mark from Philadelphia, were made from this recycled bronze mixture. They have a warm, reddish-brown color and a composition of about 95% copper, with small amounts of tin and zinc. On the front, you'll see the familiar profile of Lincoln, calm and steady. On the back, you'll find the classic wheat ears design framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. At first glance, millions of these coins were produced, so you might assume they are common. And in a general sense, they are. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 1 billion of them. But here's where things get interesting. Within that massive production, a few extremely rare errors slipped through, and those are what collectors dream about. One of the most famous and valuable errors is the 1944 steel penny. Remember the steel planchets used in 1943? A few of those leftover steel blanks were accidentally used in 1944. So instead of a copper-colored coin, a small number of 1944 pennies were struck in steel. These are incredibly rare, and when authenticated, they can sell for tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes even more depending on condition. Another rare variation involves off-metal errors, where the coin was struck on the wrong type of metal altogether. There are also double die errors, where the design appears slightly duplicated due to a misalignment during the minting process. These subtle details can dramatically increase a coin's value. Now let's talk about real value. A typical 1944 no-mint mark Lincoln penny in circulated condition might only be worth a few cents to a couple of dollars. But in uncirculated condition, with sharp details and original color, it can reach $20, $50, or even over $100 depending on grade. But the story changes completely when you're dealing with rare errors. A genuine 1944 steel penny has sold at auction for over $100,000. Even lower-grade examples can fetch tens of thousands. That's the difference a small minting mistake can make. So how can you tell if you have something valuable? Start with the color. A standard 1944 penny should look copper or bronze. If it appears silver or gray, that's your first clue it might be steel. Next, try a simple magnet test. Steel pennies will stick to a magnet while copper ones will not. But be careful. Some people plate regular copper pennies with steel or other metals to make them look rare. That's why weight is another important factor. A genuine steel penny weighs about 2.7 grams, while a copper one weighs around 3.11 grams. If something feels off, it's worth getting the coin professionally evaluated. Also, look closely at the date and lettering. Authentic coins will have sharp, consistent details. Altered coins, such as a modified 1943 steel penny changed to look like 1944, often show signs of tampering under magnification. Here's something surprising. During the transition between 1943 and 1944, both steel and copper blanks were present in the mint facilities at the same time. This overlap is what allowed these rare errors to happen. It wasn't a planned release. It was a moment of human oversight during a time of intense pressure and rapid production. Another interesting detail is that many 1944 pennies have been in circulation for decades, passing through countless hands. Some may still be sitting unnoticed in old jars, drawers, or inherited collections. That's part of the excitement. The possibility that a rare coin could still be out there, waiting to be discovered. Collectors love the 1944 no-mint mark penny not just for its potential value, but for its story. It represents resilience during wartime, resourcefulness in manufacturing, and the unpredictable nature of minting errors. It's a coin that connects everyday life to global history in a very real way. There's also a sense of accessibility. Unlike some rare coins that are locked away in museums or private vaults, the 1944 penny is something many people already have or can easily find. It invites curiosity. It encourages people to look closer at the coins they usually ignore. And that's really the heart of coin collecting. It's not just about money. It's about discovery. It's about realizing that something small and ordinary can carry a much larger story. Even today, collectors continue to search for high-grade examples and rare variations of the 1944 penny. Auction records are constantly being updated as new coins are graded and sold. The market may fluctuate, but the fascination remains strong. If you ever come across a 1944 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the color, the weight, the details. You might just be holding a piece of history, or in rare cases, something far more valuable than you ever expected. Because sometimes, the most ordinary-looking objects hide the most extraordinary stories. And in the world of coins, even a single penny can open the door to history, mystery, and the thrill of discovery. What if the small, ordinary penny sitting in your pocket right now was quietly holding a story from over 70 years ago and could be worth far more than 1 cent? Most people would never give it a second look. But collectors know better. Because sometimes, the simplest coins carry the most surprising value. Today, we're taking a closer look at the 1952 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that at first glance looks completely ordinary, yet has a rich history and a hidden appeal that continues to attract collectors across the United States. This coin is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln. By 1952, the design had already become one of the most recognized coins in American history. Millions of these pennies were produced, and they circulated widely during a time when the United States was experiencing rapid post-war growth. The no mint mark on a 1952 penny simply means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. At that time, coins made in Philadelphia typically did not carry a mint mark, unlike those from Denver or San Francisco. So, when you see a 1952 penny without a letter beneath the date, you're looking at a coin made in the country's original mint facility. Now, let's step into the world of 1952 America. The country was in the early years of the Cold War. Televisions were becoming common in homes, and everyday items like pennies were still an essential part of daily transactions. Coins like this passed through countless hands, used to buy groceries, newspapers, or a cup of coffee. Each one carries a silent record of that era. Physically, the 1952 Lincoln penny is made primarily of copper, with a composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It weighs about 3.11 grams and has a diameter of 19 millimeters. The front of the coin features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. His initials, VDB, can be found subtly on the coin, a detail that many collectors still look for today. On the reverse side, you'll see 2 wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. This design is often referred to as the Wheat Penny, and it remained in use until 1958, just a few years after this coin was minted. At first glance, nothing about the 1952 no-mint mark penny seems rare. In fact, over 186 million of these coins were produced in Philadelphia alone. That's a huge number, and it might make you think the coin has little value beyond its face value. But here's where things get interesting. While the total mintage is high, the number of coins that have survived in excellent condition is much smaller. Over decades of circulation, most of these pennies became worn, scratched, or damaged. Finding one today in near-perfect condition is far less common than you might expect. Collectors place a strong emphasis on condition. A heavily worn 1952 penny might only be worth a few cents. But a coin that has been carefully preserved, with sharp details and original luster, can command significantly higher prices. There are also subtle variations and errors that can make certain examples even more valuable. For instance, collectors look closely for double die errors, where parts of the design appear slightly doubled due to a misalignment during the minting process. While not extremely common for this year, any confirmed error can dramatically increase the coin's desirability. Another factor is color. Copper coins change over time. A freshly minted penny has a bright red appearance, known as red by collectors. As it ages, it turns to a reddish-brown and eventually a deep brown. Coins that retain their original red color from 1952 are especially sought after, because it's rare for copper to remain that well preserved over decades. So, what kind of value are we talking about? In circulated condition, most 1952 no-mint mark pennies sell for anywhere between a few cents to a couple of dollars, depending on where. But when you move into higher grades, the numbers begin to rise. A well-preserved coin graded in the mint state range can be worth anywhere from $10 to $50 or more. And in exceptional cases, the value climbs even higher. Some high-grade examples with strong red coloration have sold at auction for over $100, sometimes even approaching several $100s depending on certification and eye appeal. While it may not be a life-changing amount, it's still a remarkable jump from a coin originally worth just 1 cent. Understanding how to identify a genuine 1952 no-mint mark penny is important, especially for beginners. First, check the date carefully. It should clearly read 1952, with no signs of alteration. Next, look beneath the date. If there is no letter such as D or S, then it was minted in Philadelphia. Pay attention to the details of the design. On the front, Lincoln's features should be consistent and well-formed, even if worn. On the reverse, the wheat stalks should appear symmetrical and clear. Counterfeit coins are rare for this specific issue, but altered coins do exist, especially when people try to remove mint marks from other pennies to create a no-mint mark appearance. Weight is another helpful indicator. A genuine 1952 penny should weigh close to 3.11 grams. Significant differences in weight could be a red flag. Serious collectors often use magnifying tools or even professional grading services to confirm authenticity and condition. Now here's a fun detail that many people don't realize. The 1952 Lincoln penny was minted during a time when pennies still had real purchasing power. You could actually buy something meaningful with a single cent. Today, that idea feels almost unbelievable. Yet these coins were once part of everyday life, exchanged millions of times without a second thought. Another surprising fact is how many of these coins are still out there. Unlike rare coins that were limited from the start, the 1952 penny is more like a hidden treasure in plain sight. It could still be sitting in old jars, drawers, or collections passed down through generations. Collectors love this coin not because it's the rarest, but because it represents a perfect balance between history, accessibility, and potential value. It's a coin that beginners can realistically find, yet it still offers enough depth and variation to keep experienced collectors interested. There's also something deeply satisfying about searching for coins like this. The idea that you could discover a well-preserved 1952 penny in everyday change adds an element of excitement to something as simple as checking your pocket. Over time, as more people become interested in coin collecting, the demand for classic coins like the Wheat Penny continues to grow. This steady interest helps support the value of coins like the 1952 no-mint mark penny, especially those in better condition. In the end, the true value of this coin goes beyond dollars and cents. It's a small piece of American history, a connection to a different era, and a reminder that even the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary stories. So the next time you come across a penny, take a closer look. That small copper coin might not just be spare change. It could be a quiet survivor from 1952, carrying decades of history in the palm of your hand, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. What if a simple penny sitting in your pocket right now could quietly be worth far more than 1 cent? Not because it's made of gold, not because it looks unusual at first glance, but because of a small letter stamped beneath a date, and a story that most people never notice. Today, we're talking about the 1958 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny. At first, it looks like any ordinary coin. It's small, brown, and easy to overlook. But behind that simple appearance is a fascinating piece of American history. a coin from the final chapter of an era, and in some cases, a collectible that has surprised even experienced collectors. The 1958 Lincoln penny was part of a long-running design that began back in 1909, when the United States introduced the Lincoln cent to honor President Abraham Lincoln. This was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person, and it quickly became one of the most recognizable coins in the country. By 1958, this design had already been in circulation for nearly 50 years. The D mint mark on the coin tells us it was produced at the Denver Mint. In 1958, the United States was in a time of post-war growth. The economy was expanding, suburbs were growing, and everyday life for many Americans was changing rapidly. Coins like this penny were part of daily transactions, passing from hand to hand without much thought. But what makes 1958 so interesting is that it marks the end of something. This was the final year of the famous wheat reverse design. On the back of the coin, you'll see two wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. This design, often called the Wheat Penny, would be retired after 1958. In 1959, it was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design, changing the look of the penny forever. That means the 1958 D penny is part of the last batch of wheat pennies ever made. And for collectors, last year of issue coins always carry a special kind of appeal. Now let's look closer at the coin itself. The 1958 D Lincoln penny is made primarily of copper, with a small amount of tin and zinc. It weighs about 3.11 grams and has a smooth edge. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln facing to the right, along with the words "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1958 with the small D mint mark just below it. On the back, the wheat stalks give the coin its nickname. The design is simple but elegant. It represents agriculture and growth, values that were important to the country at the time. At first glance, millions of these coins were made. In fact, the Denver Mint produced over 800 million 1958 D pennies. That's a huge number, and it might make you think this coin isn't rare at all. And in most cases, that's true. A typical 1958 D penny found in circulation today is usually worth only a few cents, maybe a bit more if it's in nice condition. But here's where things start to get interesting. Condition is everything in coin collecting. If you find a 1958 D penny that looks almost brand new, with sharp details and a bright original color, its value can increase significantly. Coins that were never heavily used, known as uncirculated coins, are much harder to find than worn ones. Collectors often grade coins on a scale, and the highest grades can bring surprisingly strong prices. A 1958 D penny in top condition, especially with a rich red color, has been known to sell for hundreds of dollars. Some high-grade examples have reached even higher values at auctions, depending on their quality and eye appeal. But there's another layer to this story that makes 1958 pennies especially fascinating. Error coins. While the standard 1958 D penny is common, certain rare errors from that year are incredibly valuable. One of the most famous is the 1958 double die obverse, though most known examples are from the Philadelphia Mint without a mint mark. These coins show a clear doubling in the lettering on the front, especially in words like "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." These rare error coins have sold for tens of thousands of dollars, making them some of the most sought-after Lincoln cents in existence. Even though the double die is not typically associated with the Denver Mint version, the excitement around 1958 as a year has made collectors look more closely at all pennies from that time, including the 1958 D. There are also smaller errors that can appear on 1958 D pennies, such as off-center strikes, die cracks, or slight doubling that may not be as dramatic but can still add value. These errors are less famous, but they can still attract attention from collectors who enjoy hunting for unique pieces. So how can you tell if your 1958 D penny is something special? First, check the mint mark. It should be a small D located just below the date. Make sure it looks natural and not altered. Some people have tried to add fake mint marks to coins, so it's important to examine it closely. Next, look at the condition. Is the coin heavily worn, or does it still have sharp details? Does it have a bright reddish color, or has it turned brown over time? Coins with original red color are usually more valuable. Then, look for anything unusual. Check the lettering for signs of doubling. Look at the edges of the letters and numbers. Do they appear slightly doubled or blurred? Examine the coin for any strange marks, cracks, or off-center designs. If you think you might have something rare, it's a good idea to have the coin evaluated by a professional grading service. They can confirm whether it's authentic and assign it a grade, which helps determine its value. One important thing to remember is that cleaning a coin can actually reduce its value. Many people think they can make a coin look better by polishing it, but collectors prefer coins in their original condition. Even if a coin looks a bit dull, it's usually better to leave it as it is. Here's a surprising detail that many people don't realize. Even though the 1958 D penny is not considered rare in general, it still represents a moment of transition in American coinage. It's the final chapter of the wheat penny era, a design that had been part of everyday life for nearly half a century. Think about how many people handled these coins over the years. They were used to buy groceries, pay for gas, or drop into vending machines. They passed through countless hands, each coin carrying a small piece of history. Another interesting fact is that many wheat pennies were saved by collectors even back then. People knew the design was ending, so they held on to fresh coins from 1958, hoping they might become valuable one day. That's one reason why uncirculated examples are still available today, although truly high-grade ones are still hard to find. Collectors today love the 1958 D penny for several reasons. For some, it's about completing a set of Lincoln wheat cents. For others, it's about owning a coin from the final year of a classic design. And for many, it's simply the thrill of the hunt. The idea that a small, ordinary-looking coin could turn out to be something special. There's also a sense of nostalgia. Coins like this remind people of a different time, when cash was used for almost every transaction, and pennies were a regular part of daily life. Holding a 1958 D penny is like holding a small piece of that past. And here's something to think about. Even though millions of these coins were made, how many are still out there in great condition? How many are sitting in old jars, forgotten drawers, or family collections, waiting to be rediscovered? That's what makes coin collecting so exciting. It's not just about money. It's about discovery, history, and the possibility that something small and overlooked could have a story worth telling. So the next time you come across a penny, take a closer look. Check the date. Look for that small D mint mark. Examine the details, because even if it turns out to be an ordinary coin, you've taken a moment to connect with history. And if you're lucky, you might just find a coin that's more than it seems. A coin that has traveled through time, survived decades of change, and ended up in your hands for a reason. And that simple 1958 D Lincoln penny might just have one more story left to tell. What if the next penny you find in your pocket isn't just a penny? What if it quietly carries a story, a hidden detail, or even a value far beyond 1 cent? Today, we're looking at the 1984 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that millions of people have seen, but very few truly understand. At first glance, the 1984 penny looks completely ordinary. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. If you've handled U.S. coins before, you've likely seen dozens just like it. But this specific version, the one without a mint mark, has a story that makes it far more interesting than most people realize. The 1984 Lincoln penny without a mint mark was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. During this time, coins from Philadelphia traditionally did not carry a mint mark, unlike those from Denver or San Francisco. So when you see a 1984 penny with no letter under the date, that's actually normal for coins made in Philadelphia. Now here's where things get interesting. Even though millions of these pennies were minted, not all of them are created equal. Some carry subtle differences, tiny errors, or unique characteristics that can make them stand out in a big way. To understand why, we need to go back to the early 1980s. The United States Mint had recently made a major change to the composition of the penny. Before 1982, pennies were mostly made of copper. But due to rising copper prices, the mint switched to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. By 1984, all pennies followed this new composition. That means your 1984 penny is actually mostly zinc, even though it looks like solid copper. This change in material had a big impact on how coins aged and how they were produced. Zinc is softer and reacts differently over time. As a result, coins from this era often show wear, bubbling, or discoloration. But occasionally, this also led to striking errors during production. One of the most famous features associated with the 1984 penny is a doubling error. This is known among collectors as a double die error. On certain 1984 pennies, especially those from Philadelphia, you can see a noticeable doubling on Lincoln's ear. It looks almost like there's an extra outline or a shadow behind it. This is not damage. It's a mistake that happened during the coin's creation. And here's the key point. Not every 1984 no-mint mark penny has this error. In fact, only a small number do. That's what makes them so valuable. Imagine two identical-looking pennies. One is worth 1 cent. The other, because of a tiny detail on Lincoln's ear, could be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars depending on its condition. Collectors love these kinds of discoveries because they turn something ordinary into something extraordinary. Let's talk about value. A regular 1984 penny without a mint mark in circulated condition is usually worth just face value, maybe a few cents at most. But if you find one in excellent condition, especially one that has never been used in circulation, it could be worth a few dollars to a collector. Now, if that same coin has the doubled ear error, the story changes completely. Examples of the 1984 double die penny have sold for hundreds of dollars. In higher grades, where the coin is well preserved and the details are sharp, values can climb into the thousands. There have been auction sales where these error coins reached impressive prices simply because of their rarity and visual uniqueness. The clearer the doubling and the better the condition, the higher the value. But how do you know if the penny in your hand is the valuable one? First, look under the date. If there is no mint mark, you're on the right track. That means it was minted in Philadelphia. Next, examine Lincoln's ear very closely. You may need a magnifying glass or even your phone camera zoomed in. Look for clear signs of doubling. It should not look like damage or wear. Instead, it appears as a distinct second outline, almost like the image was stamped twice slightly out of alignment. Also, check the overall condition of the coin. Coins with fewer scratches, sharper details, and original color are always more desirable. A bright, well-preserved coin will attract more attention than one that is heavily worn. Now, let's address something important. There are many coins out there that people believe are rare, but actually are not. Some individuals mistake damage, corrosion, or simple wear for valuable errors. That's why it's important to compare your coin carefully with verified examples. Real double die errors have a consistent, recognizable pattern. Another thing to keep in mind is that counterfeit coins do exist, though they are less common for pennies of this type. Still, if you believe you have a valuable coin, it's always a good idea to have it authenticated by a professional grading service. This not only confirms its authenticity, but can also significantly increase its market value. Here's a fun detail that many people don't know. The Lincoln penny design has been in use since 1909, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. By 1984, it had already been in circulation for 75 years. That means your 1984 penny is part of a long tradition, connecting generations through a simple piece of currency. Another surprising fact is how many people overlook valuable coins every single day. Pennies are often ignored, tossed into jars, or left behind in drawers. Yet, hidden among them could be rare variations just waiting to be discovered. Collectors are especially drawn to coins like the 1984 no-mint mark penny because they combine accessibility with mystery. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to find one. You just need patience, curiosity, and a willingness to look closely. There's also a sense of excitement that comes with searching. Every penny becomes a possibility. Every small detail becomes a clue. And every discovery, no matter how small, adds to the story. Today, the 1984 no-mint mark penny continues to hold a special place in the world of coin collecting. It represents a time of change in U.S. coin production, a shift in materials, and a reminder that even the smallest objects can carry hidden value. For experienced collectors, it's a known treasure. For beginners, it's an invitation to start exploring. And for everyday people, it's proof that something as simple as pocket change can hold surprises. So the next time you come across a 1984 penny, don't just spend it without a second thought. Take a closer look. Turn it under the light. Examine Lincoln's ear, because you never know. That small, ordinary coin might just be the one that turns curiosity into discovery. And once you start looking, you may never see your spare change the same way again. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a simple penny. a coin you might not even look at twice. Now imagine that same ordinary-looking penny quietly holding a story that stretches across American history, metal shortages, and a surprising collector market. What if that coin in your hand, dated 1986 with no mint mark, is more interesting than it appears? Today, we're taking a closer look at the 1986 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, it's just another copper-colored coin featuring the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln. But like many coins in U.S. history, the details beneath the surface reveal a much deeper story, one that connects craftsmanship, economics, and the passion of collectors. The 1986 Lincoln penny is part of a long-running series that began in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By 1986, the coin had already gone through decades of change, including shifts in design and even its metal composition. This particular coin was produced during a period when the United States Mint was balancing tradition with modern manufacturing needs. Now, let's talk about that no mint mark. In U.S. coin collecting, mint marks tell you where a coin was made. In 1986, pennies were struck at multiple locations, including Philadelphia and Denver. Coins made in Denver carry a small D mark, but coins made in Philadelphia traditionally had no mint mark at all during that time. So when you see a 1986 penny without a mint mark, it means it was minted in Philadelphia. That might sound common, and in many ways it is. Millions of these coins were produced. But here's where things start to get interesting. Even among common coins, certain details, conditions, and subtle variations can dramatically change their value. Let's take a closer look at the coin itself. The front, or obverse, features the right-facing portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design created by Victor David Brenner. You'll notice the word Liberty on the left side, the year 1986 on the right, and the phrase "In God We Trust" along the top. It's a design that has remained familiar to generations of Americans. On the back, or reverse, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959. If you look closely, you can even spot a tiny representation of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial, one of the smallest detailed figures ever included on a U.S. coin. This reverse design was used until 2008, making it one of the most recognizable coin designs in circulation. Now, here's something many people don't realize. The metal composition of pennies changed just a few years before 1986. Prior to 1982, pennies were made mostly of copper. But rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to switch to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. By 1986, all pennies were made using this newer composition, 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper. This change had a big impact on how coins age. Unlike older copper pennies, which develop a rich, brown patina over time, zinc-based pennies can corrode differently. That's why finding a 1986 penny in excellent condition today can be surprisingly difficult. So, if millions were made, why would anyone care about a 1986 no mint mark penny? The answer lies in condition, rarity within condition grades, and the possibility of errors. In coin collecting, condition is everything. A worn penny that's been passed from hand to hand for decades might only be worth its face value. But a coin that has been preserved in near-perfect condition, what collectors call mint state, can be worth significantly more. For example, a 1986 no mint mark penny in average circulated condition is typically worth just 1 cent. But in uncirculated condition, especially with a bright, original red color, values can jump to several dollars. And in top-tier grades certified by professional grading services, some examples have sold for much higher prices. There have been auction records where pristine 1986 pennies graded at the highest levels reached prices of over $100. While that may not sound like a fortune, it's a massive increase from a single cent. And it highlights an important truth in coin collecting. Even common coins can become valuable under the right conditions. But there's another layer to this story: errors and varieties. Error coins are among the most exciting finds for collectors because they represent something unusual, something that slipped through the minting process. With 1986 pennies, collectors sometimes look for off-center strikes, double dies, or other subtle imperfections. A double die error, for example, occurs when the design is accidentally stamped more than once in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect on letters or numbers. These errors can be difficult to spot, but when found, they can significantly increase a coin's value. Even small imperfections, like misaligned dies or unusual surface textures, can turn an ordinary penny. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a single penny, and realizing it might be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it looks shiny or new, but because of something most people would never even notice. Today, we're uncovering the story behind the 1989 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that many overlook but collectors quietly pay close attention to. The 1989 Lincoln penny is one of the most common coins in American circulation, yet it holds subtle details that can turn an ordinary piece of change into something collectors value. When we say, no mint mark, we're talking about a penny that was produced in Philadelphia, one of the main U.S. mint facilities. Unlike coins from Denver or San Francisco, which carry a D or S mark, many Philadelphia coins from this era were intentionally made without any mint mark at all. To understand why this matters, we need to go back to 1989. The United States was producing billions of pennies every year. The Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909, had already become one of the most recognizable coins in the country. By the late 1980s, the design had remained largely unchanged for decades, featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. The Philadelphia Mint was responsible for producing a massive portion of these coins. In fact, in 1989 alone, over 7 billion pennies were struck there. That means millions of people today have likely handled this exact coin without ever giving it a second thought. But here's where things get interesting. Even though the coin itself is common, certain variations, conditions, and small errors can make a huge difference in value. Let's take a closer look at the coin itself. The 1989 Lincoln penny is made mostly of zinc with a thin copper coating. This composition had been introduced earlier in the decade, in 1982, as a way to reduce production costs. Before that, pennies were made primarily of copper, which had become too expensive. On the front of the coin, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right. Above his head is the word Liberty, and to the right is the date, 1989. If there is no letter beneath the date, that means it came from Philadelphia. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, with United States of America across the top and 1 cent at the bottom. At first glance, nothing about this coin seems unusual, but collectors know that the real value often lies in the details you can't see right away. One of the most important factors is condition. A 1989 penny that has been circulating for years will likely show wear, scratches, and discoloration. These are usually worth only face value or slightly more. But a coin that has been preserved in near-perfect condition, what collectors call mint state, can be worth significantly more. Then there are errors. Minting errors are what truly excite collectors. These are small mistakes that happen during the production process, and they can turn an ordinary coin into a rare find. For the 1989 no mint mark penny, some known errors include double strikes, off-center strikes, and die cracks. There are also coins with what's called doubling, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated due to a misalignment during the minting process. These errors are not common, and that's exactly why they can be valuable. A standard 1989 penny might be worth just 1 cent, but an error coin from the same year could be worth tens, hundreds, or even more depending on the severity and clarity of the mistake. Another detail collectors look for is the coin's color. Copper-coated zinc pennies can appear in different shades, ranging from bright red to dark brown. Coins that retain their original red color are usually more desirable, especially if they are in excellent condition. Over time, exposure to air and handling causes the surface to darken, which can reduce the coin's appeal to collectors. So how valuable can a 1989 no mint mark penny actually be? For most coins in average condition, the value is still just 1 cent. However, uncirculated examples can sell for a few dollars, especially if they are graded and certified by a professional service. Coins with exceptional quality, meaning sharp details and original luster, can fetch higher prices. When it comes to error coins, the value can increase dramatically. Some 1989 pennies with noticeable minting errors have sold for anywhere from $20 to over $200, depending on the type of error and the coin's condition. While these prices may not seem life-changing, they demonstrate how even a small variation can transform a common coin into something collectible. You might be wondering how to tell if you have one of these valuable coins. The first step is to examine the coin carefully under good lighting. Look at the date and check for a mint mark. If there's no letter beneath the year, you have a Philadelphia coin. Next, inspect the surface for any unusual features. Look for doubling in the letters or numbers, misaligned designs, or cracks running through the coin. It can also help to use a magnifying glass or a coin loupe. These tools allow you to see details that are not visible to the naked eye. Pay close attention to the edges of the letters and Lincoln's profile. Any irregularities could be a sign of a minting error. Another important step is to compare your coin with verified examples. Online coin databases and collector forums can provide images and descriptions of known errors. This can help you determine whether what you're seeing is truly unusual or just normal where. Of course, there's always the question of authenticity. While it's rare for someone to fake a 1989 penny, altered coins do exist. Some people try to create the appearance of errors by modifying coins after they leave the mint. This is why it's important to be cautious. If you believe you have a valuable coin, consider having it evaluated by a professional grading service. They can confirm whether the coin is genuine and assign it a grade based on its condition. Now let's talk about some interesting facts that make this coin even more fascinating. Did you know that the Lincoln Memorial on the back of the penny actually includes a tiny image of Abraham Lincoln sitting inside? It's incredibly small, but with magnification, you can see the statue within the memorial. This level of detail is one of the reasons the design remained popular for so many years. Another surprising detail is how many pennies are produced each year compared to how many are actually saved. Despite billions being minted, relatively few are preserved in perfect condition. Most are used in everyday transactions, exposed to wear and tear, and eventually removed from circulation. This makes high-quality examples harder to find than you might expect. Collectors are drawn to the 1989 no-mint mark penny not because it is rare in the traditional sense, but because it represents the idea that value can be hidden in plain sight. It's a reminder that even the most ordinary objects can have a story, and sometimes, that story includes unexpected worth. There's also a sense of nostalgia attached to coins like this. For many people, pennies are among the first coins they ever handled as children. They're part of everyday life, yet they carry history with them. Each coin has passed through countless hands, traveled across cities, and witnessed moments we'll never know. Today, coin collecting continues to grow in popularity, especially among people looking for simple, tangible hobbies. Unlike digital assets or complex investments, coins are something you can hold, examine, and appreciate up close. And coins like the 1989 Lincoln penny are often where collectors begin their journey. What makes this coin especially appealing is its accessibility. You don't need a large budget to start looking for one. In fact, you might already have one in your pocket or a jar at home. The challenge is not finding the coin itself, but finding one with something special about it. As you go through your coins, you might start to notice details you've never paid attention to before. The way the light reflects off the surface, the tiny variations in design, the marks left by time. Each of these details tells a part of the coin's story. And that's really what collecting is about. It's not just about value, but about discovery. It's about looking at something familiar and seeing it in a new way. So the next time you come across a 1989 penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Turn it over in your hand. Examine the details, because hidden within that small, ordinary coin could be a story, a history, and maybe even a value you never expected. And who knows, the next coin you check might not just be spare change. It might be the beginning of a collection, or the discovery that turns your curiosity into something much bigger. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a simple penny, a coin you've probably ignored hundreds of times, only to discover it could be worth far more than 1 cent. Today, we're looking at a 1993 Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of people have seen, but very few truly understand. The 1993 mint mark Lincoln penny is part of one of the most familiar coin series in American history. It features the face of Abraham Lincoln, a design that has been in circulation since 1909. This particular coin was minted in Denver, which is what the small d under the date stands for. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. But as we dig deeper, you'll begin to see why collectors pay attention to even coins like this. Back in 1993, the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies every year. These coins were made for everyday use, designed to circulate widely and last for years. The early 1990s were a time of economic stability, and there was no special event tied to this coin's release. It wasn't meant to be rare. It wasn't meant to be special. It was simply created to do its job as currency. But sometimes, the most ordinary objects can hide extraordinary details. The 1993 Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition had been introduced in 1982 to reduce costs, replacing the older solid copper pennies. Because of this, the coin is lighter than older pennies, weighing about 2.5 grams. It has that familiar copper color, but underneath, it's mostly zinc on the front. You'll see Lincoln's profile, facing right, along with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 1993 to the right. Just below the date is the small D mint mark, indicating it was struck in Denver. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 to 2008. What makes this coin interesting? Why are collectors even talking about a penny that was produced in such massive numbers? The answer lies in condition, rarity within condition, and small but significant errors. While billions of these coins were made, most of them entered circulation and quickly became worn. Over time, scratches, fading, and corrosion reduced their quality. Finding a 1993 penny in perfect or near-perfect condition today is much harder than you might think. Collectors use a grading scale, and coins that achieve high grades like MS65 or higher can be surprisingly valuable. But condition is only part of the story. There are also error coins, and this is where things get exciting. Some 1993 pennies were struck with minor imperfections during the minting process. These can include off-center strikes, double dies, or die cracks. While not every coin has these errors, the ones that do can attract serious attention from collectors. For example, a well-preserved 1993 penny with a noticeable error could sell for significantly more than face value. Even without errors, coins in pristine condition have been known to sell for several dollars and sometimes even higher depending on grading and demand. Now, you might be wondering, are there real examples of this coin selling for meaningful amounts? Yes, there are. While most 1993 pennies are worth only a few cents, high-grade examples certified by professional grading services have sold for anywhere between $10 to $50, and occasionally more if the coin is exceptionally well preserved. Error coins can go even higher depending on the type and visibility of the mistake. This may not sound like life-changing money at first, but consider this: these coins are still out there. They're sitting in jars, drawers, and old collections. And most people have no idea what to look for. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1993 penny? Start by checking the date and mint mark. Look for the year 1993 and the small d under it. Next, examine the coin's condition. Is it shiny? Are the details sharp? Can you clearly see Lincoln's features and the lines of the memorial on the back? The better the condition, the higher the potential value. Then, look closely for errors. Use a magnifying glass if you can. Check for doubling in the letters or numbers, unusual marks, or anything that looks different from a normal coin. Even a small irregularity could make a big difference. Another important step is weight. A genuine 1993 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If it's significantly heavier or lighter, it could indicate something unusual, though you should be cautious and verify with experts. It's also important to be aware of fakes. While it's rare for someone to counterfeit a low-value coin, altered coins do exist. Some people may try to modify mint marks or dates to make a coin appear more valuable. Always compare your coin to verified images, and if you believe you have something special, consider having it evaluated by a professional grading service. Now here's something interesting that many people don't realize. Even though the 1993 penny is common, it represents a specific moment in U.S. coin production. It reflects the era when the mint had fully transitioned to zinc-based pennies, and it shows the continued use of the Lincoln Memorial design, which had already been in place for over 3 decades by that time. Another surprising detail is just how many pennies are still in circulation. Unlike many other coins, pennies tend to stick around. That means there's always a chance that a valuable one could show up in your change. Collectors love coins like the 1993 D penny not because they are rare in general, but because they are accessible. Anyone can search for them. Anyone can find one. It's like a treasure hunt hiding in plain sight. For beginners, this coin is a perfect entry point into coin collecting. It teaches you how to look closely, how to understand grading, and how to appreciate the small details that make each coin unique. And for experienced collectors, it's a reminder that value isn't always about age or rarity. Sometimes it's about condition, history, and the story behind the coin. Think about it. This penny might have passed through thousands of hands. It could have been used to buy a newspaper, dropped in a tip jar, or saved in a child's piggy bank. Each coin carries its own silent journey. And somewhere out there, one of these pennies might be sitting unnoticed, waiting for someone to recognize its true worth. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date. Look for that small D. Examine the details, because what seems ordinary at first glance might hold a story and a value that most people never see. And who knows, the next coin you find could be the one that changes the way you look at every penny forever. What if the next penny you pick up, the one most people ignore without a second thought, could quietly hold a story worth far more than 1 cent? Not thousands, not millions, but something even more interesting, a hidden gateway into the world of modern coin collecting. Today, we're looking closely at the 1997 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that seems ordinary, yet still has secrets that most people never notice. The 1997 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced in 1997 at the Denver Mint, which is represented by the small D Mint mark you'll find just below the date on the front of the coin. At first glance, it looks like any other penny you've seen. It features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been part of American coinage for over a century. On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. But even though millions of these coins were made, each one still carries a piece of American history. The Lincoln penny itself was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, one of the most respected presidents in United States history. By 1997, the coin had already been in circulation for nearly 90 years, becoming one of the longest-running designs in U.S. coinage. The year 1997 wasn't particularly unusual in terms of coin production, but it was part of a time when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of pennies each year. The Denver Mint alone struck over 4 billion Lincoln cents in 1997. That's a massive number, and it's one of the reasons why this coin is generally considered common. However, as any experienced collector will tell you, even the most common coins can become valuable under the right conditions. Let's take a closer look at what makes the 1997 D penny unique. The coin is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper plating. This composition was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs. Each coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has a diameter of 19 millimeters. While those numbers may sound technical, they actually matter when it comes to identifying authentic coins and spotting unusual variations. The design on the front, created by Victor David Brenner, shows a detailed portrait of Abraham Lincoln. Above his head, you'll see the words, "In God We Trust." To the left, the word liberty, and to the right, the date along with the small D Mint mark. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, and if you look very closely, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln's statue inside the building. It's a small detail, but it shows the level of craftsmanship that went into these coins. Now here's where things start to get interesting. Even though the 1997 D penny is common, certain versions of it can be worth significantly more than face value. The key factors are condition, errors, and grading. Coins that are in uncirculated condition, meaning they were never used in everyday transactions, can be worth more to collectors. These coins often have a bright, shiny surface and sharp details. Professional grading services use a scale from 1 to 70 to rate coins, with higher numbers indicating better condition. A 1997 D penny graded at MS-65 or higher can be worth several dollars, and sometimes even more depending on its quality. But the real excitement comes from error coins. These are coins that were struck with mistakes during the minting process. For the 1997 D penny, collectors have reported several types of errors, including off-center strikes, double strikes, and die cracks. While these errors are not extremely common, they do exist, and they can significantly increase the value of a coin. For example, a 1997 D penny with a noticeable off-center strike could sell for anywhere from $20 to over $100, depending on how dramatic the error is. A well-preserved example with a clear and unusual error might attract even higher offers from collectors who specialize in mint mistakes. There have also been cases where high-grade 1997 D pennies, especially those graded MS67 or higher, have sold for impressive prices at auction. While these are rare, they show that even a modern penny can achieve collector value under the right circumstances. Some auction records have shown these coins reaching prices of $50 to over $150 when they are in exceptional condition. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1997 D penny? The first step is to check the mint mark. Make sure the D is clearly visible and not altered. Next, examine the coin's surface. Look for unusual features such as doubling in the letters, cracks, or areas where the design appears shifted. These could be signs of a mint error. Weight and size are also important. A genuine 1997 D penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If it feels significantly heavier or lighter, it might not be authentic, or it could be a different type of error coin. Using a small digital scale can help you verify this. Another important factor is the coin's color. Lincoln pennies from this era are usually classified as red, red-brown, or brown. Red coins, which retain most of their original copper color, are typically more valuable than darker ones. If your coin still has that bright reddish shine, it could be worth a closer look. Now let's talk about something many people overlook. Even though billions of these coins were made, very few of them survive in perfect condition. Most were used in everyday transactions, which means they were exposed to wear and damage over time. Finding a 1997 D penny in near-perfect condition today is actually much harder than you might think. Here's a surprising fact. Some collectors specifically search through rolls of pennies from banks, hoping to find high-grade examples or rare errors. This process is known as coin roll hunting, and it has become a popular hobby. The 1997 D penny is one of the coins that often shows up in these searches, making it a great starting point for beginners. Another interesting detail is that the Lincoln Memorial design, featured on this coin, was replaced in 2009 as part of a special series celebrating Abraham Lincoln's 200th birthday. That means the 1997 D penny is part of the final years of a design that lasted nearly 5 decades. For many collectors, that historical connection adds extra appeal. So why do collectors still care about a coin like this? The answer is simple. It represents the idea that value isn't always obvious. A coin doesn't have to be rare in quantity to be valuable. It just needs the right combination of condition, uniqueness, and demand. For some collectors, the 1997 D penny is a reminder that treasures can still be found in everyday places. It's a coin you might already have in your pocket, sitting in a jar at home, or hidden in a forgotten drawer. And while most of these pennies are worth only 1 cent, a small number of them tell a completely different story. In the end, the 1997 D Lincoln penny is more than just loose change. It's a piece of history, a product of the U.S. Mint, and a symbol of how even the most ordinary objects can hold unexpected value. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting out, this coin offers a simple but powerful lesson. Sometimes the smallest details can make the biggest difference. So the next time you come across a penny, take a closer look, because hidden in plain sight, there might just be a story waiting to be discovered. Imagine pulling a penny from your pocket, glancing at it for just a second, and almost tossing it aside. Now imagine that same penny quietly holding a story most people completely miss. A story that could turn an ordinary coin into something collectors actually search for. Today, we're talking about the 2019 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that looks common, feels common, but might not be as ordinary as you think. The 2019 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running series of 1-cent coins in the United States, featuring the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front. For over a century, Lincoln pennies have been part of everyday American life, passing through millions of hands without a second thought. But every year, subtle differences in these coins create small pockets of interest, and sometimes, surprising value. When you hear no mint mark, it might sound like something is missing or even wrong. But in reality, it's actually normal. In 2019, pennies were produced at multiple U.S. mint facilities, including Philadelphia and Denver. Coins struck in Philadelphia traditionally do not carry a mint mark, while those from Denver have a small D stamped on them. So a 2019 penny without a mint mark simply means it was made in Philadelphia. But here's where things start to get interesting. Even though millions upon millions of these coins were produced, not all 2019 no-mint mark pennies are exactly the same. Small variations in the way they were struck, tiny imperfections, and rare errors can turn what looks like pocket change into something collectors actively seek. Let's go back for a moment and understand the background. The Lincoln penny design itself has been around since 1909, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. The front, or obverse, shows Abraham Lincoln, while the back design has changed over time. In 2019, the reverse featured the Union Shield, a design introduced in 2010 to symbolize Lincoln's role in preserving the United States during the Civil War. The metal composition of the 2019 penny is also worth noting. It is primarily zinc, about 97.5%, with a thin copper coating making up the remaining 2.5%. This gives the coin its familiar copper color, even though it is not solid copper like older pennies. This change in composition happened decades ago, but it still plays a role in how these coins wear over time. Now let's talk about what really catches attention: the unique features and possible errors. Most 2019 no-mint mark pennies are completely normal, but a small number may have minting mistakes. These can include things like double strikes, off-center designs, or subtle doubling in the lettering or Lincoln's profile. These errors happen during the production process and are usually caught early, but some slip through into circulation. Collectors are always on the lookout for these unusual coins because they are much rarer than standard issues. Even a slight doubling of letters, something that might look like a shadow under magnification, can make a coin far more desirable. The same goes for coins that are struck slightly off-center, where part of the design is missing or shifted. So why would a coin that's technically common become valuable? The answer lies in condition and rarity. A 2019 no-mint mark penny in average circulated condition is worth exactly 1 cent. But if that same coin is in near-perfect condition, what collectors call mint state, its value can increase. Add a rare error into the mix, and suddenly you have something that could sell for significantly more. There have been cases where high-grade 2019 pennies, especially those graded by professional coin grading services, have sold for several dollars, sometimes even higher depending on demand and condition. Error coins, particularly those with clear and dramatic mistakes, can reach prices in the tens or even hundreds of dollars. While that may not sound like life-changing money, it's a huge jump from a single cent. One of the most important factors in determining value is grading. Coins are evaluated based on their condition, from heavily worn to flawless. A coin that has never been used in circulation with sharp details and no visible damage is far more desirable than one that has been handled countless times. That's why collectors often search through rolls of pennies, hoping to find one that stands out. Now you might be wondering, how can you tell if your 2019 no-mint mark penny is something special? The first step is simple observation. Look closely at the coin under good lighting. Check Lincoln's face, the lettering, and the edges. Are the details sharp? Do you notice anything unusual, like doubling or misalignment? Using a magnifying glass or a simple coin loop can make a big difference. Many errors are too small to see with the naked eye. Pay special attention to the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," as well as the date. These areas are where doubling or other irregularities often appear. Another important detail is the overall condition. If your coin looks bright with no scratches or wear, it may be worth keeping aside. Even without errors, a well-preserved coin can attract interest from collectors. For spotting a fake. The good news is that counterfeit pennies are extremely rare, especially modern ones like the 2019 issue. It simply isn't worth the effort for counterfeiters. However, altered coins do exist. Some people try to modify coins to make them appear as errors. This is why it's important to rely on natural-looking characteristics rather than anything that seems forced or artificial. If you ever believe you have a valuable coin, one option is to have it examined by a professional grading service. These organizations authenticate, grade, and seal coins in protective holders, which can increase trust and value in the collector market. There are also a few fun and surprising details about the 2019 penny that most people don't think about. For example, billions of pennies are produced each year, yet many of them slowly disappear from circulation as people store them away in jars, drawers, and collections. Over time, this creates a kind of hidden scarcity, where fewer coins are actively circulating than originally minted. Another interesting fact is how people often overlook modern coins entirely. Many assume that only old coins are valuable, but that's not always true. Sometimes, the combination of a recent date, a specific error, and perfect condition can create a unique opportunity for collectors. Collectors today are drawn to coins like the 2019 no-mint mark penny for several reasons. First, it's accessible. Almost anyone can find one in their change. Second, it offers the thrill of discovery. The idea that something valuable could be hiding in plain sight is incredibly appealing. And third, it connects to a larger story: the ongoing history of U.S. coinage and the legacy of Abraham Lincoln. There's also a growing interest in searching through everyday coins, often called coin roll hunting. People go to banks, get rolls of pennies, and carefully examine each one, hoping to find rare dates, errors, or high-grade examples. It's a hobby that combines patience, curiosity, and a bit of luck. And that brings us back to where we started: that simple penny in your hand. The 2019 no-mint mark Lincoln penny might look ordinary at first glance, but it carries layers of detail that most people never notice. From its historical design to the possibility of rare variations, it reminds us that even the smallest things can hold hidden value. So the next time you come across a penny, don't rush to ignore it. Take a closer look. Turn it under the light. Study the details, because somewhere among those everyday coins, there could be one that tells a story far more interesting than its face value suggests. And once you start looking, you might never see pocket change the same way again.